Namaskar everybody and welcome to the Geeta Satsang for today. So let us get started. Let us do the prarthana. By the Guru's grace and the will of Shri Krishna, we have all assembled for this Geeta Satsang. May we have their grace and their guidance to be able to learn and adopt the things which will help us to grow spiritually. Let us chant the shlokas. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnaya Vasudevaya Haraye Paramatmane Pranatah Kleshanashaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Namostu Te Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullara Vindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Ramanujadaya Patram Jnana Vairagya Bhushanam Srimad Venkatanathaaryam Vande Vedanta Deshikam Yo Nityam Achyuta Padambuja Yukma Rukma Vyamohatastaditarani Trinaya Mene Asmad Gurur Bhagavatosya Dayaika Sindhoho Ramanujasya Charanau Sharanam Prapadye. So with prayers at the lotus feet of the Acharyas, let us take our shloka for today. So we have been seeing in the previous shlokas about what are the different qualities or characteristics of a person who is called as a sthithapragnya. So in that, if you remember, we have been looking at the shlokas in a reverse order. We took 58, then we took 57, then we took 56. So today we are at shloka number 55. Now, if you remember in the 54th shloka, it was that Arjuna had asked Krishna that who is a sthithapragnya? How does he sit? How does he talk? What are his characteristics? So the 55th shloka is the first answer that Krishna gave. So today when we are taking shloka 55, it is starting as Shri Bhagavan Vacha because the previous shloka was Arjuna speaking and here now the Lord has started giving the answer. Because it was easier to understand the answers from the lower to higher level, we did not take shloka 55 first, but we went to shloka 58. And shloka 55 is actually the most last level, the highest stage of how a sthithapragnya, what is the quality of a sthithapragnya. So in this 55th shloka, Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Prajahati yada kaman sarvan parthamanogatan atma yevatmana tushtaha sthithapragnyastadochyate. So the Supreme Lord Bhagavan said, O Partha, when one discards all selfish desires and cravings of the senses that torment the mind and becomes satisfied in the realization of the self, such a person is said to be transcendentally situated. So this is the quality of a sthithapragnya. Who is that person? The person who has discarded, has given up all selfish desires. What are these selfish desires? The desires for his own pleasure and cravings of the senses that torment the mind. Now the senses are constantly craving for something or the other. Now, why do we say that the cravings of the senses which torment the mind? When we are having the craving and we are trying to enjoy that pleasure, we do think that we are feeling happy at that moment. Then why is it told that they torment the mind? Because those pleasures are only momentary. They are temporary. They are not long lasting. They don't give us permanent joy. And more importantly, the same object, the same item which gave us pleasure at some point of time later is bound to give us pain. So somebody who gives up all such desires, somebody who gives up the wanting to enjoy through the senses, such a person will then become satisfied in atma sakshatkara, in realization of the self. And such a person is called as a sthithapragnya. So we were talking about the different sanyas which are explained under Vairagya. And today's shloka is a description of what happens in this level of Vashikara Sanya. So Vashikara, Vasha means control. So Vashikara Samya means the level at which the sadhaka has gained complete mastery over the mind. So what do we mean by saying that he has gained mastery over the mind? In the last shloka when we saw, we talked about how it is important to eliminate the desires from the mind. Now, although the vasana may be erased from the mind, okay, although the desire may be removed, but the impression of that vasana stays in our mind. So what happens is, like, let us say there is a person who has decided that they are going to do upvas, they are going to fast. So during the duration of the fast, they have suppressed that desire for food. But does it mean that the desire has gone away? No, it has only been temporarily suppressed. Again that desire will come back, right? So that is a inferior state. What will be the superior state? Where the person is not bothered about what he is eating and what he is not eating. That will be the higher level. If I say that, okay, eating this, I'm not going to eat on this day, so I decided I'm not going to eat on that day, but I have not done anything to the basic desire of wanting to eat tasty food, right? So for that much time I have decided, so I'm going to abstain from eating. But that is not vashikara, that is not gaining mastery, because the minute the opportunity is next available, I am going to eat. And when I next eat, I will be thinking about what is the tasty food, what is it that I like, what I don't like, right? Many times you may have noticed that there are people on the day of Ekadashi, when we are supposed to be fasting, that is the day when we get more and more thoughts about food, right? There are some people who will ask about how to fast on Ekadashi. What is the meaning of asking how to fast? There is only one way to fast, isn't it? That is to not eat anything. But if people are asking what is the way to fast, that means they're actually asking you, what is it that I can consume? So there also the idea is on what to consume. So does it mean that such a person has controlled his senses? No. Has he controlled his mind? No. At that level, still the vasana is there. The desire in the mind is there. Although externally the action may be curtailed, but the desire from the mind has not gone away. But what is this shloka talking about? That next level, that even the desire, the vasana is erased from the mind, and the mind is focused only on the atma. Such a person is called as a sthithapragnya. So when the commentators explain, they say that, suppose let us say there is a person who is eating many different foods. Now whatever food we are eating, we know that from that food we are getting particular components, like we are in eating and we are getting carbohydrates, we are getting proteins, we are getting fats, we are getting minerals, we are getting vitamins, like this. Now that is when we are looking at the food in terms of the item of food that we are eating. Are we eating rice, are we eating dal, are we eating vegetables, like that. But ultimately what is the essence, that what content you are getting from that, correct? So actually our stomach cannot recognize whether I ate a gulab jamun, or I ate tili saru, or I ate some very tasty kind of sweet, or I ate some khara item. The stomach cannot distinguish all that. It will only look at everything in terms of whether it is carbohydrate or protein or fat, and it will digest that accordingly, correct? Now suppose somebody is ill and that person is hospitalized and he is not able to consume food by eating it on his own. Then what is given to him? He is given drips. He is given saline solution, glucose solution. So what is given to him at that point of time? Only those minerals, only that glucose, which is most important for his body to survive. Correct? So in that stage also the person will survive. Why? Because he is getting whatever is the most essential thing. Now this can be compared to the situation where a person gets joy from objects in the world versus somebody who is getting joy from the atma. So which is superior? When you get joy from objects, you are only enjoying it for that particular amount of time. You are enjoying a lot of different things. But then that feeling of joy is there because it is going to give you some pleasure. But is that permanent? No. Is that of a very superior quality? No. Is it going to always give you joy? No. But suppose you get joy from the Atma, then that is the very essence of joy, isn't it? So that joy will never go away. That joy will be everlasting. That joy is going to be of the most superior quality. And that joy you will enjoy irrespective of whether you have some objects or not. Irrespective of whether you are enjoying, you are having some item through which you are getting the joy. That is not going to be needed. No object is needed. Your joy is coming from the Atma itself. So this level, getting to this level is the ultimate stage for somebody who is called as a sthithapragnya. So first they have to have control of the senses. Then we have to have control of the mind. Then we need to control the desires. Then we need to get to the stage where the desire itself is erased from the mind. And how that is possible? By focusing the mind on the Atma. Now this is like a vicious cycle. So there are times when people talk, we will talk about that in the future shlokas also, that to be able to destroy the vasana, you need to focus on the mind, Atma. And focusing on the Atma will come only when you have erased the vasanas. So which is coming first, which is coming later? It is that question of whether the egg came first or the chick came first, right? So like that, if vasana is there, you can't have focus on the Atma. If you're not able to focus on the Atma, then the vasana will not go away. So like that, we need to find an entry point somewhere and get to the stage where we are going to focus only on the Atma and not let our mind get carried away with wherever the senses are taking us. So in the from this, what we can learn, right? The acharyas give the example of Prahlada. Now we know that Prahlada was subjected to so much torture by his own father, that is Hiranyakashipu. And yet Prahlada did not experience any distress. When he was burnt in the fire, he did not feel the fire burning him. When he was thrown from the high mountain, he did not feel any pain. He didn't feel that his body was hurt. When he was trampled upon by the elephant, then nothing happened to him. When he was given poison, it didn't harm him at all. So why Prahlada did not experience any distress? His body had the experience. It went through the experience, but he did not feel any pain in that. Why? Because his mind was constantly centered on the Atma, and not just the Atma, but on the Paramatma within the Atma. In fact, it is told that when they threw Prahlada down from the mountain, from the top of the mountain, he was hugging himself. He was hugging himself around the heart. And then later somebody asked him that, why were you hugging yourself like that? So he said, no, when they threw me down the hill, I was worried that the Paramatma who is inside me, the Lord who is inside me, should not be, tumbling down. My body is tumbling, but I don't want that Lord to be disturbed by that movement of my body. That is why I'm holding on like that. So how much was the focus of Prahlada on the Paramatma? So not only on the Atma, but on the Paramatma he was focused. So that tells us that if we are always keeping our thoughts, our mind on the Atma, on telling ourselves that whatever is happening is only for the body, it is not for my mind. And we try to encourage that kind of a feeling within ourselves. We practice that sentiment. Then what will happen is, it will be easier for us to get to the stage of a sthithapragnya. So being centered on the Atma, having your thoughts always focused on the Atma, that is what we need to learn. The second thing that is explained here is about the Alvars. Now the Alvars are the saints of Tamil Nadu. They are the great devotees of the Lord. The word Ala means deep, isn't it? So Alvar is somebody who was very deep in the experience of love of the Lord. So these Alvars, many of them have sung in their prabandhas. They have sung of different things. Now there are places where the Alvar sings about his experience. Now whenever Alvar touches the mud, okay, he does not see it as mud. What happens to us when we see land somewhere, when we see some place which is, some kind of a real estate property, some place is there, empty space is there, empty land is there. what is our way of experiencing that? We say that, oh, this place is good. Is it going to be a good investment? I should buy this area, or should I do something with this land? Like that. So we are only looking at it with a sense of desire for what is going to come to me because of that land. But how does the Alvar look at the land? He says, oh, this mud. He touches the mud. He applies it to his forehead and he says, I'm so lucky to be able to touch this mud. Why? Because this is the mud which was covered by the feet of Lord Trivikrama. Now, in some particular yuga, that Vamana Avatara happened, and Vamana grew into the form of Trivikrama, and he covered the entire worlds with his feet. But even in Kali Yuga, the Alvar is experiencing that, and he's saying that this mud is the holy mud which was covered by the feet of my Lord. So why is the Alvar able to experience that? Why is our way of looking at the mud different from that of the Alvar? Because the Alvar is looking from the point of view of the Paramatma. He is completely immersed in experience of the Paramatma. So everything he sees is for him an aspect of the Paramatma. If the Alvar looks at the fire, he says, oh, this fire is blazing so bright. It is as radiant as the form of my Lord. So how is the Alvar able to experience that? Because he is not bothered about whatever is part of this world through the five senses. He's not experiencing it as something for him to enjoy, but rather he's experiencing it as something which is related to his Lord. So that kind of a bhava has to develop. And then the person will be qualified to be called as a sthithapragnya. So, of course, this level is very, very far for all of us. We are at maybe nursery level or KG level, and this stage of sthita pragnya is somewhere near postgraduate PhD level. So we are nowhere near to getting there immediately, but we must keep reminding ourselves that this is what we have to get to. This is the goal for us. We have to make ourselves reach this stage. So every day, little by little, whatever effort I can do, in whatever circumstances, I can try to practice these things. We must try to practice them in whatever way possible. Something happens which is unpleasant to me. Let me see if I can focus on God at that time and not let my mind be carried away by whether it is pleasant or it is unpleasant. If something happens which is causing pain to me, let me try to focus my mind on the Lord and say that even Prahlada had to undergo so many difficulties. I am not any great devotee, and yet God has given me only so much. I am having only so much trouble. Not God has given me, only so much trouble has come my way. Poor Prahlada was such a great devotee, and yet he had to undergo so many turmoils. So I am nothing compared to him. Like that, we must keep our bhava and try to slowly cultivate the habit of focusing our mind on the Atma and on the Paramatma instead of letting it be caught up only in the objects of the world and on trying to derive pleasure from those objects. So now we move on to the next shloka. So as I said, we have taken up, today we took 55. In the previous satsangs, we have taken up 56, 57, 58 also. So now it is turned to go forward and start going in the usual forward direction. So now we will move to shloka 59. In the 59th shloka, Lord Krishna is continuing to explain to Arjuna. So in the 59th shloka, he says, Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinaha rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. So he says, a sadhaka, an aspirant, somebody who is aspiring to reach the Lord, may restrain the senses from their objects of enjoyment, but the taste for the sense objects remains. However, even this taste ceases or stops for those who realize the Supreme. So again, the same concept that vasana will be there. You can restrain your senses from contacting the object. Okay, I like seeing beautiful things. So I will close my eyes and I will not see those things. I like to eat tasty food. So I will not give my tongue those foods. So I can restrain the senses. But the rasa, that remains. That vasana, that remains. But if I realize the Supreme, if I focus myself on the Paramatma, then even that taste will go away. So then a person really progresses in the spiritual field. So how can we, why this word, this what they are telling, niraharasya dehinaha. So dehi is the atma. So even if you are starving that atma by not giving inputs from the senses, but the vasana will remain in the mind. So if you want to get rid of the vasana, then the focus has to be on the atma, and further, more importantly, on the Paramatma. Like Prahlada, we have to move in that direction. So whatever is our taste right now, it is a very low level taste. We have to move that to a higher level taste. So to be able to do that, there is a story that we can understand, and that teaches us about how we need to translate our desires from a lower level to a higher level. If you only try to suppress the desires, they don't go away. But instead of trying to, and they will just stay quiet for some time, but they will come again, break open at some point of time later when we are in a weak moment. But if we learn to, change the level of the desire, I am having a low level desire, I make that to something connected to the Lord, then that is called as a sublimation of the desire. So that if I'm able to do, instead of trying to suppress the desire, I make that desire into a higher level of desire, for the desire to attain a higher goal, then that is the path that will take me ahead on the spiritual path. So here the example, the story we can learn from is of a person called Dhanurdasa. Now this Dhanurdasa was a very strong young man, and he was a wrestler and very strong person and very rich person also. And one fine day in Sri Rangam, when some Utsava, the temple Utsava was going on, everybody had gathered there, right? So there is a big procession that was coming. There are people who are playing all the music and coming, all the vadyas are being played for the entertainment of the Lord, to worship the Lord. Then there are people who are singing different songs in His glory. They are singing bhajans. And there is the Veda Goshti who are reciting the Vedas. Then there is the Prabandha Goshti, people who are reciting the Divya Prabandhas. Everybody is walking and coming, and then finally behind all of them, the Lord Himself is brought out in a procession. So the Utsav Murti of Lord Ranganatha comes out, and they are bringing the Lord out in the procession. So everybody is focused on the Lord. Everyone is looking with lot of devotion and praying to the Lord, and they are appreciating the beauty of the Lord. As part of this group of devotees, there is also Swami Ramanujacharya and all his disciples who are there in that place. So at that point of time, suddenly everybody notices one strange sight. This Dhanurdasa has one lady walking along with him, and he is very shamelessly, he has eyes only for that lady. He is holding an umbrella to protect her, and he is only looking at her, and he wants so much to take care of her and look at her and enjoy her beauty, that he is actually holding the umbrella and walking in keeping with her steps, and he is not wanting to take his eyes off from her face. So he is looking at her and he is walking backwards and holding the umbrella for her. Everybody else is looking at the Lord. Everybody else is immersed in devotion to the Lord. This man seems to be immersed in devotion to this woman. So all people, including the Shishyas of Swami Ramanujacharya, they start saying that what is this man doing? What shameless behavior? How can he behave like this in public? Why he is doing this thing? How bad of him? See what a sensual guy he is. See how much vasana he is having. And all these people keep, pointing faults at him. They keep criticizing his actions. Swami Ramanuja tells his Shishyas that go and do one thing. Tell him that I want to talk to him and please bring him to me. So they go. In fact, he is so lost in looking at that woman and enjoying her that he is not even able to hear when they call out to him. But after telling repeatedly, then finally he understands, okay, these people are telling me something. He comes to Swami Ramanuja. Now, the Acharya asks him that, what is this? Why are you behaving like this? Don't you find it odd that, you have been only having eyes for that lady? Everybody else is busy in the Utsava, but you are only looking at. He says, no, I am really totally enamored by her. I am mesmerized by her. So Swami asks him that, why, what is it about her that you like so much? So he says, no, I think that she has the most beautiful eyes in the world. And I want to, I am so much in love with her. I want to protect her. I want to take care of her. And she's so beautiful. Her eyes are so beautiful that I can't take my eyes away from her eyes. I have to keep looking at her every moment, he says. So Ramanujar asks him that if I show you a pair of eyes which are more beautiful than this, will you give up this behavior of yours? Then will you come and become a servant of that person who has more beautiful eyes than this lady? So he says, yes, definitely. If there is somebody if you can really show me eyes which are more beautiful than this woman's, I have no objection. I will leave her immediately and I will become a servant of that other person who is having more beautiful eyes. So Ramanujar tells him that, okay, you come today evening, I will take you to the place where there is a person with even more beautiful eyes. So in the evening, Dhanurdasa comes to Swami Ramanuja and Swami takes him into the temple of Lord Ranganatha. Everything is dark. In the darkness, inside the Garbhagudi, inside the Sanctum Sanctorum, there is nothing else. Just the Archaka, the priest who is standing there. And right at the time when Swami enters with Dhanurdasa, they are doing Arati to the Lord. And that flame of the Arati is casting a divine light on the divine face of the Lord. And at that moment, Swami Ramanuja tells Dhanurdasa, look at the eyes of this Lord. And indeed, as Dhanurdasa looks into those eyes of Lord Ranganatha, we know the Lord is called Aravindalochana, isn't it? He is Aravindaksha. So he has those beautiful eyes which are compared to the beautiful lotuses blooming in a lake. In fact, it is said that the reason why we compare them to the lotus is because there is nothing else which is superior to be compared to. Even lotuses are only momentary, they bloom. But the Lord's beauty is ever existing. How many stotras are there? How many shlokas are there that praise the beauty of the Lord's form? And here, this Lord is lying with those beautiful, radiant eyes. And looking into those eyes, Dhanurdasa completely loses himself. And then he falls at the feet of Swami Ramanuja. He falls at the feet of Lord Ranganatha. And he says, oh, what a fool I was. I considered the worldly eyes to be beautiful, but there is nothing that can match the beauty of Swami Ranganatha's eyes. And from that moment onwards, he becomes a disciple of Swami Ramanuja. From that moment onwards, he is involved completely in seva to the Guru and through him in seva to the Lord. And then that lady also becomes, they are married. So she also becomes a disciple of Swami Ramanuja. So like this, if we look at this story, what can we see here? What we talked about, that rather than suppressing the desires, we should go into sublimation of that desire. Instead of desiring a low quality thing, let us venture to desire a high quality object. And what is most superior in this world? The desire for moksha, the desire to attain the lotus feet of the Lord, the desire to be with the Lord in Vaikuntha. So that is the path. Like Dhanurdasa, how Swami Ramanuja taught him to go from seeing the beauty of that woman to seeing the beauty of the Lord, then that is giving a superior goal to the eyes. We have seen previously also the Mukundamala Shloka of Swami Kulashekar Alvar, isn't it? So in that we talked about how Alvar is telling his own senses. He says, Jivve kirtaya keshavam muraripum cheto bhaja sridharam. You remember that shloka? We have talked about it before. So he's telling his tongue, oh tongue, you get joy, you get the taste out of singing the glory of the Lord and his leelas. He tells his ears, only hear the sounds of Nama Sankirtana of the Lord. He tells his eyes that look at the divine form of the Lord. He tells his hands and legs that walk to the temple of the Lord, do seva, do puja, do archana to the Lord. And he tells his nose, you smell the divine tulsi which is offered to the holy feet of the Lord and get joy out of that. So that is how we need to sublime our desires. These sense organs that we have are continuously going to demand something for their gratification. How do we go beyond that? Instead of trying to say that I will not look at anything with my eyes, let me teach my eyes to look at the divine form of the Lord. Let me teach myself to get joy by looking at the divine form of the Lord. Let me teach myself to get joy by hearing the holy name of the Lord. Let me teach myself to get joy by singing the glories of the Lord with my tongue. Let me seek taste in the prasada of the Lord and not in any other worldly food. Let me learn to smell the tulsi offered at the Lord's feet. Let me smell the flowers which are offered at the feet of the Lord. And like this, let me use all my senses in going further towards the Lord. So, as we said, we need to be focused on the Paramatma. Then only the vasana will get away from us. Of course, to some extent, we should have a reduction of our desires to get to this stage. But if we are going to make a beginning somewhere, it is like many times we want to change our thoughts and we also want to change our behavior. So you can change your thoughts and then your behavior will change. Or you can change your behavior and automatically after some time you will find that your thoughts have changed. So for us, because we are used to performing actions, let us start at that level. Instead of saying, I will try to develop bhakti and then I will start doing those actions for the Lord. Let me do those actions for the Lord. And let me, as I do, keep doing those actions repeatedly, as I keep seeking joy from seeing the Lord, from hearing his name, from chanting his name, from eating his prasada, from smelling the flowers at his feet, as I keep doing that time and again, the vasanas in my mind will go away gradually. My desires, all these sense organs which have been geared towards getting joy from worldly things, all these janmas, slowly then it will move to seek joy only from the Lord. And that is the stage that we need to get to. So we should make beginning in small ways. Every day when we spend some time in puja, let us try to focus our mind on the Lord. Let me look with my eyes wide open at the beautiful form of the Lord. Let me try to memorize that form of the Lord so that even when I close my eyes and I sit for dhyana, then I'm able to visualize that form of the Lord. Why is the Lord having such a beautiful form? To give us an aid to focus upon. We cannot, it is very difficult for us to focus on blank space. It is very difficult for us to focus and say, oh, there is atma and I'm going to experience the nature of that atma. That is very difficult. But what is easy? If we have visited some temple, we have visited some holy kshetra, let us look at the Lord there and imbibe that image of the Lord on our inner eye. And whenever we sit in dhyana, whenever we are chanting the Lord's name, let us try to visualize that form of the Lord. When we do that, we will find that it becomes easy for us to focus our mind on the Lord. And by doing this repeatedly, we will be able to get rid of all the vasanas and proceed further towards becoming a muni, towards becoming a sthithapragnya. So again, as we always say, this can happen by the grace of the Lord. So let us pray that Krishna will bless us to be able to reach this stage. Let him support us in all the steps that we are taking. Let him keep giving us reminders time and again of what I need to do so that I continue further on the right path. So let us pray for all that and let us offer Kritagnyata now for today's learning, whatever we have been able to learn today. Let us offer gratitude, Kritagnyata, at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna and Guru for inspiring us to start and to join this satsang. And let us pray for their blessings and grace to always be on us. Thank you everybody for attending the satsang. And if anyone has anything to ask or any questions, you are most welcome to send them to me on WhatsApp because our time is over. We will stop now. Yeah, everybody is saying thank you. Pramila Aure, Zarnaji, Ram, Tulsi Ram, everybody. Thank you so much. We will meet again next week in the satsang. Thank you. Namaskar.